All right, so hi, good morning. How are you guys? Did I give you any homework last night? No, right? I should, right? I will try not to give you homeworks. All right? I try not to. But in some cases, if I see that you need a little bit more practice, then I will give you homework. And also, it's going to happen. Sometimes we'll start something in the classroom. We may not have enough time to finish everything in class. So those things, you will take it as homework, and I will give you a plenty of time to finish it. Okay? So it's not gonna be everyday exercise as a homework, but sometime you do expect that. So I'm going to go through very briefly what we have studied yesterday. Then we will continue with the second part of this chapter, and then we will wrap up chapter 1, and then we do have a Kahoot. And after the Kahoot, end of the class, I need your help. All right, I need your help to give me some feedback about what did you like about the class, and if you have any suggestions for improvement. All right, and I will take your feedback very, very seriously to make improvements. All right, and I try to do that from the beginning of the term, so that's why I'm asking for your feedback today. Okay, I will send out a Google form, and it's gonna be completely anonymous. I'm not gonna collect any email addresses or student ID or anything, right? So feel free to write anything you want. That's completely fine. All right. Are you okay with that? Giving me feedback? Okay. You can criticize me. That's completely fine. So we started, this chapter is the business organization and their stakeholders. So we briefly learned the business organizations, and what we basically looked at in our last class. So the purpose of business organization, that what all business organizations have in common, types of organization, why organization exist, how do they differ, sectors in organizations, and the difference between profit, non-profit organization, public sector organization, and limited liability companies. So those are all the things what we have studied. So I'm going to go through it here. We learned what is an organization, right? So if you look at the definitions, this is basically a social arrangement for the controlled performance of collective goals. So you will have group of people working in a controlled environment, moving towards a same goal. All right? That's what an organization is. And we looked at more examples of collective goals that includes the profit maximization, market expansions, innovations. For social arrangement, we looked at corporate hierarchy, team configurations, networking events. Control performance, we saw the performance review, SOPs, standard operating procedures, KPI, key performance indicators, compliance training. And then we looked at different examples of organizations and the purpose of business organization. We learned synergy, and we looked at more purposes and the sectors, the different sectors of organization that includes agriculture, manufacturing, extractive, raw materials, energy, retailing, distribution, intellectual production, service industries. And these are different types. And we looked at by ownership and control. It could be both private and public. NGOs, voluntary cooperatives, by profit oriented, so which is the profit oriented or non-profit oriented. And then we looked at the cooperative societies. Then private sector, we learned sole proprietorship, partnerships, limited companies. And when you look at the limited companies, there are two different types of limited companies, the private limited companies and public limited companies. So the private limited companies, you sell the share privately, all right, to some selected people. And the public limited companies, you list your company in a stock exchange. So then you sell share in public. So anybody can buy it. Differences, advantages, disadvantages. So then we learned that the business are open system. So now let's continue from there, which is we are going to define stakeholders, explain the agency relationship, define internal, connected, and external stakeholders, the main stakeholder groups and objective for each group, how the different stakeholder groups interact, and compare the power of influence of different stakeholders. So this is what we are going to study today. All right. So what is a stakeholders? I think we talked about it very, very briefly, that is organization, groups, and individuals that have an interest in the organization and affected by its goals, operation, activities, or behavior of members. So that means what we are looking at, that you have interest or you are also directly or indirectly affected by that organization's decision. All right, so then you are the stakeholders. So again, more definitions: any group or individual who can affect or be affected by the achievement of an organization's objectives. Sorry, I was distracted with the notification. You know, like I train myself that I'm not going to look at the notifications. So sometimes what I do, I stop the notifications on my phone. And after that, sometimes I forget to enable the notifications again. So, so often what I do, I will remove my watch when I teach. Anyway. So this implies the bi-directional nature of stakeholders group, which can affect a firm or be affected by a firm. So that means you are one of the stakeholder of CAMET, right? Can you influence the organization? Can you? Because your opinion matters for this organization because you are one of the stakeholders. I'm working at CAMET, my opinion matters because I'm also one of the stakeholder of CAMET. But if I cannot influence, like let's say, for example, I'm just a random person who came to visit CAMET. I have no relation, all right? There's no way CAMET is influencing me. Whatever feedback I give it to CAMET, it doesn't matter. CAMET is not going to accept those feedback, right? Isn't it? Like you are studying at CAMET. Now, today I'm asking you for your feedback. And when you give me that feedback, that is going to change a lot of things, right? That is going to change on how I design the presentation slide, the amount of content I put on the presentation slide, the way I speak, the amount of exercise I give it to you. So that means you have the power, right, to make changes because you are one of the stakeholders. Not a shareholder, a stakeholder. Remember that. Shareholder is a different thing. What is a shareholder? Yes. So you are actually becoming part of the owner of the company. So then if the company is making more money, your share price will increase. So then you also make more money. If the company lose money, you also lose money. Like any business is losing money nowadays. Can you give me a popular business which stock is going down? Huh? Is it listed company? Listed company means the company is listed in a stock exchange. But in Cambodian Stock Exchange, how many companies are there? Only a few. No, I'm not talking about Cambodia. I'm just saying that like the worldwide, any large company, you know that the stock price is not performing as well as before. Gold is going up, okay, but it's not an organization. Huh? No, 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 no. I was just saying like any kind of organization worldwide. Yahoo still exists. It's a dying company, all right? So Yahoo actually made a mistake. There was a long ago, I think that Google wanted to buy Yahoo and they did not sell it. Okay, let's look. You know the company Tesla. What is Tesla doing nowadays? Six months? So 1 year? 5 years? Not so well. You see that it was going up. Even during the pandemic, then it started falling and it still did not recover yet. Why is that? Again, I told you, right? I will give you a lot more related insight whenever we talk about something. Why is that? Why? It's not an investment class, all right? But I'm giving you a little bit of insight. Why it did not recover yet? You need to know this kind of things in order to understand, you know, like the global business perspective. Yes, thank you. Because of Chinese. This Chinese BYD have a huge market share in USA. And those are cheaper vehicle than Tesla. So then in order to help the US companies, what the US government did, they increased the tax on imported cars in USA. Imported cars from China. So the tax is 100%. If the car price $30,000, now you have to pay 60,000. All right? In order to help like the local companies like Tesla. So let's see. But the EV, it has that hype, the electric vehicle at the beginning. But now I think it's kind of like a slowing down a little bit. Okay, anyway, how about Boeing? You know Boeing, right? Ooh, 1 year. Okay, what is happening? Let's look at 5 years. What is happening with Boeing? This drop is the COVID pandemic, all right? All airlines companies in the world struggled. Okay, none of them performed very well. Even the Warren Buffett, he sold a lot of his share, which he invested in different airlines companies. He sold during the pandemic, all right? Because he knew the company will be losing a lot of money. But then it started slowly recover and then started going down and it's still falling. Why is that? Technology, yes, but there are some issues with Boeing. They had some flaws with a specific aircraft, the model name 737 MAX. All right. So it crashed, killed more than 300 people. Then I think 2 years ago, I think last year, 2 years ago, last year, there is one door fell off. Have you seen that video? In flight, it was, you know.
Yes, we are emergency. We are depressurized.
You see that? You are inside a flight and there is no door. Luckily, nobody was sitting next to the door. Think about it. If you're sitting next to the door without a seatbelt, you're gone.
Need to return
All right. Just look at that. So when that happened, right after that, there was one more incident happened. Right after the flight took off, the landing gear fell off. You know the landing gear, right? The wheel. But luckily, it didn't fall off. Fall on someone's head. It fell on next to someone's house. But anyway, so then the US government started investigating. And they find out there's a lot of flaws in that company. In order to cut cost, they bypass a lot of security measure. All right. Maybe if we have enough time today, I will show you some video that what Boeing CEO is answering to the jury later on. So what I was trying to show you that those share price at Boeing is keep falling because of all those different incidents the Boeing are having, right? So if you are a shareholder, now you're concerned, isn't it? And many of the shareholders, they are selling their shares. Why is that? Because what is the main intention when you buy share? To make profit, right? So you want to maximize your profit through your investment, either the long term or the short term. So stakeholders, so there are two different types, the primary and secondary stakeholders. And there's also the boundary management. So the primary stakeholders, so those are contractual relationship with the organization, either internal or connected. I will come with a lot of examples. Just stay with me in a minute. And secondary is like a general public, or the outside is like you don't really have like any direct relationship with them. And boundary management, that's called the management of relationship with stakeholders, both within and outside. That's called boundary management. So you have to manage everything. So having a good relationship with the stakeholders is very important. It's very, very important. Stakeholder types, so there are three types. The short form is ICE, is internal, connected, and external. So in general, you can see that internal stakeholders, employees, management, connected, shareholders, customers, suppliers, financiers. External, like the community, government, or any kind of pressure group. Do you know what is mean by pressure group? Anybody seen that? Have you ever seen like any protest on like the people are protesting in front of like a clothing store that, oh, you are killing animal, don't kill animal, save the world. Have you seen that? You will see that in a developed country a lot, especially like all these fashion industries, they use leather to produce goods. Do you like leather? Do you like leather goods? Anyone who does not like leather goods? I think here we're quite neutral, right? Because it's nothing bad to use leather goods, because think about it. You are consuming beef, right? Do you eat beef? Yeah, so that means you definitely can use that skin, convert them into a leather, and create some products. So there is nothing bad. But some companies Do you know this company, Canada Goose? Not the bird. Normally, whenever like you see like any of those film star in like a cold weather, they will wear these branded clothes. So the Canada Goose, they use a specific type of fur in order to produce this kind of jacket. Do you know how much does it cost? One winter jacket? Thank you. It's $1,000 plus. All right, the basic ones, but it can go like even very expensive because they use this. Yep. So then that means you will see like this kind of things from different pressure group that, hey, don't kill this animal, this and that, and so on. That's your external stakeholders. So then they can also create pressure on you that not to use that. Like think about it. How many plastic cup in this room right now? 1, 2, 3. So you don't have to hide it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm looking at the single-use plastic. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Oof. So we have 21 plastic cups or bottle in this room right now. So what if there is any like pressure group who really think that plastic is bad for our environment? You know, they can start creating pressure on us. They're like, hey, you are using a lot of plastic on campus. Because think about it. If just 20 plastic cups in this room right now, out of, so let's say about 30 to 40% of you in this classroom, you have at least one plastic cup in this room right now. So that means if we calculate that daily out of 3,000 students, let's take 1/3. Let's take 1/3. So that means 1,000 plastic cup coming to campus every day. 30,000 per month. All right. So that means 360,000 per year. We are using it just at CAMET, isn't it? No, I'm not saying you don't use it. I'm just using it like as a case that if any pressure group who really against plastic, they can actually, if they know this number, they can start creating pressure on us. Of course, they cannot come and say anything, but they can like have a protest outside that, hey, don't allow plastic inside. You are producing that amount of plastic, not producing, you are using that amount of plastic, and that creates this amount of issues, that amount of issues, and so on. Okay, so you can see that here, you see this whole thing, the internal, connected, and external. So your management, your employees, this is internal. Connected, which is it's very close to your organization, right? These are connected. They have direct influence. They can affect you. We can like change things, which is lenders, customers, shareholders, suppliers. And then this is basically your external. All right. So I will tell you more. So now let's look into an example. Internal, connected, and external. This is an example of a coffee shop. So if you look into a coffee shop, your internal is your owners, employees, management. Connected, supplier, customer, finance providers, shareholders. And if you look into the external regulatory authorities, if there is any trade union, you don't really see that many trade union here, but in many countries there are trade unions, environmental pressure groups like the one we were just talking earlier, competitors, and the local communities. So these are the three main types of stakeholders, which is internal, connected, and external. So now, if I give you any business and I ask you to categorize these three different types of stakeholders, can you do that? I think you can, isn't it? Just remember that. Internal, basically within that organization, you have direct control. All right? And they are actually the key decision maker. Connected, which is you are closely working with them. All right? That's called connected. And external, which is you don't work with them all the time. You don't have any direct relationship with them, but sometimes you have to follow some of these guidelines from them. All right? Think about it. If government changes something in the guidelines, we have to update that. Like, let's say during the pandemic, instruction came from the government, we have to go online. We went online, right? So we have to follow their instruction as well. So even though there's the external stakeholders, they're also important. You have to understand your competitors as well. So now let's look into a little bit more information. So when you say the internal stakeholders, so here the managers and employees have special interest in the organization and the continuous growth and so on. And the interest to defend jobs, career, money, promotions, benefit, and satisfaction. So the employees in the organization, of course, they have to think about their job, right? And then response risk, the pursuit of system goals, industrial actions, negative power, refusal to relocate, and resignation. So when you talk about these internal stakeholders, if the instruction comes something from my boss and I don't like it and I say, no, I'm not going to do it. I am in that point that I can say no to something because I'm in that internal, right? But the thing is, if it is connected, often the instruction comes from the management, go to them, and they cannot say much. Like, think about it. Supplier is a connected, right, stakeholder. So I'm using 5 different suppliers, and then I'm not happy with one of the supplier, and I just tell them like, hey, get out. I'm not going to use you. Can they do anything? They cannot, right? But what if I do that to one of my employees? I suddenly say, hey, I don't like you, get out. You are fired. What do you think is going to happen? That person is going to lose the job. But if I fire somebody without following the labor law, that person actually can go to Ministry of Labor and file a complaint against the company. All right? So dealing with your internal stakeholder is critical sometimes. Connected is less critical, and the external is actually not critical at all. Sometimes actually you can ignore them, but you should not, because they are also stakeholders. Like if the competitor making some sort of actions, do you think you have to update your strategy? No? You shouldn't? Think about it. Starbucks, when they started expanding rapidly, the Brown is also started expanding. Wherever Starbucks is opening, Brown is also moving somewhere near there and opening a branch. It could have been other way around because the Brown was older in Cambodia. But maybe at the beginning, they did not have enough money for expansion. But then when they started expanding, they are growing, and now all the banks, they're okay to give them loan because they have a good performance record at the back. So that means what I'm trying to say, if Starbucks making a move, the Brown is also going to make a move because they are the direct competitors in the country, isn't it? Can you tell me any country where Starbucks is not successful? Vietnam? Why?
In-house coffee brands are more popular and cheaper and more so catered to the local market.
Exactly. There are few countries in the world. Vietnam, Australia is another country where there are so many Starbucks outlets, but the people still prefer the coffee from the local barista, not from an international chain. All right? Like the same thing in my country, I would prefer a burger from a local shop. They actually, even from the street side, trust me, they will make much more nicer burger than the international chain. And maybe it's 1/5 of the price. It's super cheap. Okay, let's continue. So shareholders or the investors. So there's the owner of the company and the supplier of the capital. All right, the shareholders is basically the owner of the company, and the investors are basically the supplier of your capital. So the types of shareholders, institutional and private shareholders. So when you talk about the institutional, investors generally large firm which make investment in stock. And then private shareholders, either individual or a small group of investors. So the connected stakeholders. So you can see the shareholders, bankers, suppliers, customers. So you can see that interest to defend the shareholder wealth. Because if the company is making bad decisions, the shareholder will be losing money. So their main concern is the company should continue operating the business in a manner that it will expand and it will also expand their profitability. Like did I tell that to your class about the Volkswagen example? Do you know the company name Volkswagen? Volkswagen, what do they produce? Car, right? So a couple of years ago in 2015, they launched one diesel engine car to the US market. So the diesel engine car, normally it produces more carbon dioxide emission than petrol engine car. That's why you normally see petrol engine car, not diesel engine car that much. Because the diesel is cheaper, right? But the diesel is less pure than petrol. That's why when it burns, it creates more carbon dioxide emission. So in order to give approval for importing those cars, the car company, they have to go through some specific type of test. All right. So of course, the Volkswagen, they went through the test and they passed the test. And passed the test with a surprising result that is performing a much more better than any other car in the market in terms of the carbon dioxide emission. So it created suspicion that, oh, what kind of technology they are using, which is so advanced. So they started investigating more. And again, every time they test, the result turns out really nice. So then they're like, all right, we tested within a controlled facility. Now let's test it outside. So they started driving that car on the street where no other cars are around. All right. So they measured the carbon dioxide emission in that area before driving the car, and they started measuring after driving the car. And they find out their carbon dioxide emission is actually way higher than, the maximum level, way higher. So what they did, the Volkswagen, is very interesting. They installed a cheating device in that car, so then the car can pass the test. So the car will recognize when the car is being tested, and then it will adjust the engine performance in a way so then it produces less carbon dioxide emission. The company was almost bankrupt just because of that. Do you know how much money they had to spend in order to settle everything? I mean, I can Google it. We can say VW scandal settlement. So they have to spend 16 million, so $18 billion. All right. And then agreed in June 2016 to pay up to 14.7 billion to settle civil charges in the United States. Can you imagine that? So when that happens, as a shareholder, how would you feel? Because the company's share price is going to drop, isn't it? When there is something negative from the company. Do you know why that happened? Why they made such a mistake? First of all, when they went to the board of directors, and the board of directors said, "Oh, we didn't know." And they're like, "How come you didn't know? You are releasing hundreds of thousands of cars in the market." They're like, "Okay, let us investigate." So they investigated and they said, "Oh, it was one of our engineers did that without getting our approval." And it did not make sense that how come the engineer will do that without getting approval? And then they said, "Oh, we already took care of the engineer. We already fired him, punished him, and so on. It's done. It's gone." So, of course, it was not. So what happened? They did not have any independent board. So it was more like a family business. Like, think about it. Your dad running a business, and your dad invite all of your siblings to become the board members for that company. So when your dad says something, will you argue with your dad or you say yes? Say yes. So that's what happened. So that's why it's very important for the company to appoint independent board of directors so they can criticize, they can advise the senior management. And Volkswagen did not have independent board of directors. I will do one case study on this issue. It's quite interesting. There's a lot more. And the bankers, the security of loan, suppliers, the profitable sales, payment of goods, long-term relationship, customers, the goods as promised, future benefit. So the response risk, what can happen when the company does not perform very well or they have some sort of issues like Volkswagen, they can sell the share, right, to somewhere else. The bankers, they may stop giving you loan. Suppliers, they may refuse on giving you product on credit. Because this is a common practice. Like if you are buying product, supplier will not charge you immediately. So you place an order, supplier send you the product, and then you sell the product, then you pay back to the supplier. That's a very common practice. Do you know that? So if you don't have a good relationship with them, they may refuse to do that. And the customers, They simply go outside somewhere else. All right, think about it. When you first joined at CAMED, what if your experience in the foundation year was really, really bad? Will you continue studying at CAMED? No, you will go somewhere else. No, I'm saying really, really bad. That like you all failed in the class and you learned nothing. You will go somewhere else. Is it clear so far? No, yes? Okay. All right, don't worry. It's gonna be all right. And then there are external stakeholders like the opinion leaders, pressure group, trade unions, professional bodies. All right. So you can read them later on. So external stakeholders, the government, and then the pressure groups, the professional bodies, and so on. So I'm not going to read them. So it's okay. So you can see that both internal and connected are your primary stakeholders. And your external is your secondary stakeholders. Remember that. So now there are some, oh, what happened? Sorry, guys, just give me 1 second. I have no idea what happened here. Should go up. Okay. So now there are conflicts between shareholder groups. Look at that. Like shareholder, what shareholder wants? They want to make more money. They want their investment to grow, isn't it? Directors, they want more bonus. All right. All the people are working in the organization, they want more money. Employees, they want more money as well. Customers, you want the price to go down. You want to pay as little as possible. But all other people in that company, they want to make as much money as possible. Isn't it? Suppliers, they also want to make more money. They want to increase the price whenever it's possible. Government, they will also increase the taxes, all right, over time. So you see that is creating a conflict that you have to keep the customer happy by offering the product at a lower price, but at the same time, you also need to increase the price in a way that you can make more profit. So that you increase the price, but if you increase the price, your customers are not going to be happy, isn't it? So what do? You try to cut down the cost in production. All right. So then you can create the same product, but at a lower price. Why so many garment factories are in Cambodia? Why Apple produced their iPhone in China? Huh? Low production cost. Thank you. Low production cost because the minimum salary of labor is very low. What is the minimum wages for factory workers in Cambodia? 190 right now. 150 was a few years ago. So there's another reason. I remember that was, I think, 2012, when the government increased the factory worker salary from 120 to 150. Within that year, more than 200 factories were closed in the country. I think 250, if I'm not mistaken. Because now the small factories, they are not going to make enough money because they have to pay higher salary to the people. So what I'm trying to say, this is another reason the companies, especially the manufacturer, they will try to find places where they can produce the product at a lower cost. So they produce the product at a lower cost. So that means now their profit margin is higher. but they are maintaining the same price point. So the customers are also happy. Okay. But if I increase the price because I want to make more profit, customers are not going to be happy. Customer will go somewhere else. Like, do you know the restaurant name Dim Sum Emperor? Do you go there? I remember when they first opened, any dim sum you buy from that place, anything was less than $3. There was nothing on the menu more than $3. I mean, talking about dim sum. But now if you go and see there, you will see like $4 plus. But when you eat dim sum, just one dim sum is not going to be enough for one person, right? Because you'll be ordering a few. And then at the end, it becomes too expensive because they increase the price. So it was very popular. And I used to see there were so many customers in that places. But after they increase the price, people go somewhere else. Like there was one branch was like really close to my previous place where I was living in Tulkork. Was that dim sum place was right behind Zaman Paragon Primary School. Yes, in that corner where the blue pumpkin was before. So I used to see a lot of customers. You pass by that place right now, you don't really see customers. No, it's because of they increased the price. They became too greedy. I mean, they don't have to increase from $2.75 to $4.50. That's like almost 40% increase on a product price. You don't do that. If you want to increase, you increase a small amount. Do you know how many percent you can increase the price and people would not notice it? You are close. If anything less than 2%, we don't notice it. So if like the 2% increase, think about it. You are increasing 2% in every 2 months. All right. In a year, you get like a 10% increase, but the customer don't notice it. But many companies, they are like, oh no, I'm greedy. I want more increase. I want to make as much money as possible. Okay, let's continue. We have a lot. So supermarket conflict, customer want lower price, right? Employees want higher wages. Farmers want higher price for goods. Shareholder also want the opposite, right? So everywhere you go as a customer, we want to get as much as possible, but we want to pay as little as possible, isn't it? So that's something you need to keep it in mind. All right. So now let's continue. Mendelow's power interest matrix. So that's it. That's the last concept for today's chapter. So here it is. So this one, you have power, interest. So you can see that low, high, low, high. So the local community, their power is very low, isn't it? And the interest is also very low. But if you look at the full-time employee, their interest is really high, but their power is low, right? Because we are paid employees in this organization. We cannot make changes. If I'm an investor, then probably I have more power, right? Let's look at that. The government, the power is very high, but their interest is low. Now, like the key players, like the CEO or the main investor, their power is high, their interest also high. All right. So that means for the local community, you can actually give minimum effort. For the full-time employees, you have to keep them informed about any kind of decisions. And the government, because their power is high, you have to keep them satisfied all the time. How do you keep government satisfied with your business? Bribe them? Thank you. What you're saying is correct. Following their guidelines, pay taxes on time, any kind of guidelines, rules and regulations they have, you follow properly, the governments are happy. All right. You cannot keep them happy by bribing them. Trust me. You try to bribe them once, you have to do that all the time. And you will always have that fear that, oh, what if somebody find out I'm doing this thing wrong? And one day somebody will find out. Trust me. And then you'll be in a big trouble. And here, you're the key employees, you have to keep close with all kind of relation, decision makings, and so on. All right. So I already explained those. So the significance of stakeholder groups. The corporate governance framework should recognize stakeholder level of interest and power, sometimes seeks to reposition stakeholders, identify key blockers, and facilitator of change. So the corporate governance, the board of directors, what I was telling you earlier about the Volkswagen, they had this problem, right? So you have to make sure that they are recognized in your stakeholder groups. All right. You inform them, you seek for advice, and you also need to identify key blockers and facilitator of change. In your stakeholders, if you find out there are some people or some groups in your stakeholders, they are creating issues for your company, you have to identify them. Sometimes the pressure group, they create a lot of problem because they will go in social media and they will say a lot of bad things about this company, that company, and that can lower down your company's reputation. Okay. I think, yeah, that's it. So choices for stakeholders who are not happy. Loyalty, they will follow the instruction. Exit, they can go and sell their shares somewhere else. Voice, they try to change the system. You may have all the mixture of all different types of people in organization. Okay, it's actually very difficult to get all the loyal people. Sometimes the people have voices, but they're afraid to speak up. We'll find more. Okay, don't worry. Oh, that's it. So what we learn, the stakeholders, and then if we look at the stakeholders, there are three main types of stakeholders. What are those? Can somebody tell me? Internal, connected, and external. Thank you. So which one is primary and secondary? Wow, so you guys are good. So employees in an organization, is it a primary or secondary stakeholders? Employees, primary, right? How about customers? Is connected, but is primary. Both internal and connected is primary. And external is secondary. So the secondary stakeholders, right? They don't, the government has power. The competitor, I think we'll talk about competitor in another day. Did you understand? We'll see from the Kahoot. Okay, you don't have to answer that. So the Kahoot, and after Kahoot, I will ask for your feedback. So we have 20 questions because this Kahoot is combined with the Kahoot from yesterday. Because yesterday we did not have enough time to do the Kahoot. And after you finish the Kahoot, I will post it in your classroom as well. So then you have access to the Kahoot. You can play it as many times as you want, no problem. And for practicing the Kahoot, you can put your nickname if you want to. It's completely fine. You don't have to use your student ID or full names because this is for you to practice. Just a revision. Are you all in? Funny puffin. Do you know what is puffin? Puffin? No, I just looked at the name. The puffin. It's a bird. No, puffin. Puffin is it's a kind of bird. This one. When we say process, on Tuesday, do you guys have any class before this? Okay. Do you guys have class at 7:30 in the morning? No, because it's on the August 22nd, our IQA department is inviting me to join one of the assessment from AU and QA. So we may need to reschedule that session, but I try not to put it in another day. So I will look either if you do not have a class at 7:30 in the morning, maybe on that day we'll just do it at 7:30. So then you study at 7:30 until 11, then you're free to go. You guys are really good. Of course, it is false. Oh, no, that's correct. But it's also primary. That's the mistake. Okay, I will fix it. Sorry about that typo. Have you all submitted? Shall I skip it? Yeah, it's all of them. All right. Have Scott. Really, team? All right, that's wonderful. Excellent, guys. You guys are really, really good. All right, so now I need your help. I already sent, not sent, publish it in Google Classroom, the feedback form. So there's only two questions. One is, what did you like about the class? And if you have any suggestions for improvement. All right. So, and I will look at your feedback very carefully and I will make those improvements from upcoming classes. All right. So please spend about next 5-7 minutes to give me that feedback and then you're free to go. Once you're done, you're free to go. Oh, guys, before you go, as I told you, next 2 weeks I'm not here. So that means there's no classes next week and no classes in the following week. So I will see you guys on the 7th of, no, 6th of August. All right. But again, we'll make that announcement in classroom. All right. Goodbye, everyone. I will post it today. I will. In the afternoon, I will post. Goodbye.